Good evening and welcome to Chesapeake Public Schools Family Empowerment Webinar presented by the Office of Family and Community Engagement. I'm Laura Lerf, one of the FACE specialists. Joining me tonight is my FACE partner, Lisa Carey, and I would also like to acknowledge Andrea Vale under the umbrella of Business and Community Partnerships. Our office seeks to create meaningful partnerships in order to inspire, engage, and empower families, educators, and community agencies to support the initiatives of Chesapeake Public Schools. Please check out our website at www.cpschools.com and follow us on Twitter at CPSFace. We do have an upcoming webinar that may be of interest to families. In January, we will host a webinar entitled Learning with Dyslexia, which will help families understand dyslexia and strategies to help your child become successful readers. Most of our webinars are recorded and placed on our YouTube channel for future reference. We are very excited to have you joining us for tonight's webinar entitled Military Education, which will focus on the use of the post 9/11 GI Bill for spouses and dependents, as well as military career opportunities for students after graduation. Before I introduce our panelists for this evening, I do want to acknowledge that 43 of our schools in Chesapeake currently hold a Purple Star designation, which means that they are committed to students and families connected to our nation's military. We are very proud of Chesapeake Public Schools' commitment to serving our military families. And now on to tonight's webinar. I'm pleased to introduce our panelists for this evening. Joining us, we have Ms. Kim Bowen, an educator with Fleet and Family Support Center, who will share her knowledge on the use of the post 9/11 GI Bill for dependents and spouses of service members. Next, we have Petty Officer Henry Galarza, who will discuss military career opportunities for students after graduation. And finally, for extra support, we have Dr. Jeffrey McGee, who serves as the NSA Hampton Roads School Liaison Officer. We are asking all attendees to please place your questions in the Q&A at the bottom of the screen. We will answer all questions either throughout or at the end of the webinar. And please note that this webinar is being recorded for use on our YouTube channel. At this time, I'd like to turn the program over to Ms. Bowen. Welcome, Ms. Bowen.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. I'm going to give you an overview of the post 9/11 GI Bill if you choose to use that for your children to attend college. So the post 9/11 GI Bill is utilized as a retention tool and or recruiting tool. You can transfer to your dependents if you've been in for at least 6 years and up until 16 years. You must transfer it prior to your 16th year. You have to agree to enlist for 4 additional years. So there's a time frame there from 6 to 16. You can transfer it to your eligible family members. Your family members have to be in the DEERS system. The defense, I always have to look at this. It's the Defense Enrollment Eligibility Reporting System. Most of you know that acronym, but it is DEERS. So your family members that are eligible for to utilize your benefit must be in DEERS. There is no expiration date for the post 9/11 GI Bill as long as you entered the service after January 2013. If you have the full benefit, it's up to 36 months of a benefit. And the active duty can revoke this or modify it at any time. If they gave it to 3 children, 1 month of each child, and then 1 child did not go to college or a trade school or something like that, they can pull it back from that child and then give additional to other children. So we do recommend that when you first transfer the benefit, you give 1 month to each child as well as a spouse, and then you can manipulate it down the road, but you want to at least do the transfer 6 years to 16 years, and you have to obligate 4 additional active duty years. Reservists can also take advantage of this benefit. The difference is that you accumulate time towards that benefit. You have to do 90 consecutive days to get the beginning of the 40% of the benefit, and then 36 months of active duty time in order to get the full benefit. With the reservists, unfortunately, only federal activation counts towards this. So if you're activated federally from the reserves, they bring you on active, then you can put time towards this benefit. And then you can also transfer it to your dependents. Okay. The eligibility of the family members for the spouse, they at 6 years or more, when you transfer that, they can start to use it immediately. So if the service member is still active, then the spouse will not receive the monthly stipend for the BAH entitlement, because active, you're already getting one. However, the child, if the sponsor is still active duty, they will receive a separate stipend for the housing, BAH. Spouses can, though, receive stipend for books and supplies. That is something that changed a couple of years ago. It used to be that, the sponsor was still active, the spouse did not qualify for that, but they do now, as well as the children. They can get also a stipend for books and supplies. Let's see here. The sponsor, the spouse, if the sponsor is still active duty, they cannot utilize it on the Yellow Ribbon program. And I'll go over that in a minute for that. And the housing, those are the two things when they're active. If the sponsor gets out or they're retired and they had transferred it, then they will qualify for all the stipends and things that the child would as well. The child, you want to make sure you do this transfer. You can do it when they're a year old and all the way up to 23. And then the only stipulation is the child must use the benefit before their 26th birthday. For the spouse, it's indefinite, but the children have a expiration. Okay. And also with the dependent child, they must be 18 years of age or a graduate from high school or a GED in order to utilize this benefit. Okay. A new change last year was you can also give this benefit, transfer it to foster children or wards of the state if they are your dependents and you are they're in your DEERs. So that's something new, a benefit that you can transfer to children that you're taking care of. Okay, Chapter 35 benefits, that has to do with the survivors and dependents of active duty that died after September 11th, 2001, or they were permanently disabled with a service-connected disability. Okay, this the survivors and the dependents are eligible for this, the same as with the spouse or the child. They can utilize it towards education or any type of training, whether it be a trade school or certification. There's a lot of areas that they'd be able to use it for. There are stipends with this particular benefit also for housing, books, and supplies. And there is also a Fry Scholarship, and it is named after a Marine that was deceased, but his last name was Fry. And this is for any active duty or reserve that died from service-connected disability after 9/11. This particular scholarship is for a child or a spouse survivors of that particular service member. Okay. And the Yellow Ribbon program is in addition, I didn't have this on the slide, is in addition to, it's a school that if it's a private school and your spouse or your child chooses to go there, let's say the benefit is a max of $10,000 and the school is charging $15,000. The benefit will pay $10,000 and then the school goes into a written agreement with the VA and they agree to split the difference. So in some cases they can go to a private school or utilize it in that way where if it's a little more expensive. It also plays a part in in-state tuition versus out-of-state tuition. So you want to look into that as well. Usually if you have a VA office at the school, they'll be able to educate you on this particular benefit to be used. The only thing is if a spouse is going to go to school, she cannot utilize the Yellow Ribbon program when the sponsor is active duty. Okay, because there's extra funds involved, and when you're on active duty, you're already getting BAH and so on and so forth. Okay. And then with the resources here, how would you go about doing the transfer? The active duty is going to go to MilConnect, and on there, there'll be an option for education. You're going to click transfer of education benefits, and then you'll have a list of your dependents. And we suggest that you give a month to each dependent and then also the spouse. This way, when they decide to go to school or they don't, you can change it around, but you want to give a little bit to each one so that, because once you make that selection or you get out, you cannot change those. Okay. But you can pull it back at any time. It is the service member's benefit, so they are entitled to pull back those benefits if they choose. Okay, there are some scholarships or grants that you can apply for with some of the service relief offices. The commissary, they also have small scholarships that your children can apply for. There's militaryscholar.org, and that's listed with the Fisher House. If you go on there and you'll answer some questions, and it might find other scholarships that the military kids are eligible for. FastWeb, of course. MyCAA is another program for spouses. There's a $4,000 grant that they can apply for, and it is for E1 to E5, and then W1, 2, and O1 and 2 spouses. Those are grants. Okay, so the Education Center phone number is down there, and if you wanted more information, you can certainly call them. That's the VA Education Center, and they'll answer any questions. Also, the site, the MilConnect, as well as the va.gov education, you can go on there. There's a wealth of information. You can compare Montgomery GI Bill to the post GI Bill. If you were getting the Montgomery GI Bill, you can convert it to the post, or sometimes you can use both. So there's a lot of different options. You just want to make sure that if you intend to transfer your benefit to your children or your spouse, you want to do that as soon as possible and then obligate 4 years. So if you know you're going to obligate 4 years now, I would go ahead and give each one a month, and then you'll already have done those 4 years by the time they go to school. A lot of times we see people wait to the last minute and then you're not able to transfer that benefit. Okay. Okay. So now I will turn this back over to Miss Laura.
Thank you so much, Ms. Bowen. So at this time, we'd like to take a minute to answer any questions that we might have. So Ms. Bowen, is this able to be used for any adoptive or foster children?
Yes, they, as long as they are in the DEERS, usually when they become their dependent or their award of the state, they go into DEERS so that they can get their TRICARE ID card. So yes.
Great, thank you. And then another one, when is the best time for me to transfer my benefits to my dependent?
We usually tell people to do it now, do it right away. Even if you think you're only going to do one reenlistment, as long as you have 6 years in, you can transfer. And even if you only do 8 years, you did 4, well, 6, it would bring you to 10. So yeah, we suggest that you do it right away.
Awesome, thank you so much. All right, and now I would like to turn the program over to Petty Officer Henry Galarza, who will discuss military career opportunities. Welcome, Petty Officer Galarza.
Good evening. Thank you very much. Hang on, is my camera working?
Yes, sir, you're good.
Okay, great. So with me today, I have Petty Officer Kester and Petty Officer Thrower. They are the school recruiters for Oscar Smith and for Great Bridge High School. They're going to be very familiar faces with your students. They're in there as often as the school will let them, and they will actually be the ones that are working with the children as well during their process and joining. So on this slide, we've actually got our phone numbers. I'm the LPO for the station. If you guys have any questions that you feel need to be taken a little bit higher than the recruiter themselves, or your child's not hearing from any of the recruiters here in the office, you definitely feel free to give me a call. Our address is there as well. We have no problem with walk-ins. You're more than welcome to come in. We are open Monday through Friday from 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. And we are ready to answer any questions you guys have and also present some information for you.
All right, so what we're going to be going over today are the advantages of service, eligibility for service, what you need to join when you come into the office, and ways you can join. So advantages of service, careers. So America's Navy offers cutting edge training in more than 130 essential fields, including healthcare, electronics, nuclear engineering, aviation, and more. So if there's a civilian job, 9 times out of 10, there is an equivalent to it here within the Navy. I think as far as branches of service, we definitely cover the most ground and versatility for job placement. Adventure, escape the ordinary and explore new horizons, travel to more than 100 ports around the world, experience different cultures, get involved in life-changing humanitarian missions. It's honestly one of my favorite parts of being in the Navy. I've seen myself 8 different countries over 2 different deployments. Seeing the world and experiencing new cultures, as well as being able to do the outreach projects that are made available to us when we do pull into foreign ports, is definitely one of the most unique experiences that I wouldn't have gotten without the Navy. Cultural. America's Navy values diversity, equality, and inclusivity. We strive to build a fleet of sailors who accurately reflect the rich makeup of our country. So diversity makes us as strong as we are. It definitely plays a part in being able to work with people from different backgrounds who have different experiences throughout life. We all look at problems differently. It makes us twice as effective. Education. You learn, we will pay. Get an education without college loans. America's Navy can offer free tuition, college credit, scholarships, and financial reimbursement. So there are infinite ways to earn a free education within the Navy, whether it's reserve or active duty. One of them is the post 9/11 GI Bill that they just covered through the last presentation. The Montgomery GI Bill is still a thing. Tuition assistance, which on the active duty side is 100% of the tuition covered when you serve. So you can take college courses. There's also things like the CLEP program. So the test out program to get college credit. Dante's is a similar program to CLEP. The Navy College Office does a lot of liaison work between the Navy and education institutions to explore scholarships and things like that for us, as well as translate our service transcripts to actual college credits. Benefits: engaging in meaningful work is a reward itself, but America's Navy also offers outstanding benefits. So as far as benefits go, the equal opportunity advancement, the guaranteed advancement opportunity, annual pay raises, full medical and health, or medical and dental health care coverage, all of the above. So military benefits are pretty uniform across the board. When it comes to the educational benefits is where we kind of differ from branch to branch. And then the general requirements for enlistment. So general requirements, height and weight standards. All personnel will have to meet specific height and weight requirements prior to joining. Example, males 71 inches tall. Your maximum weight is 196 pounds. Females 66 inches tall. Your maximum weight is 163 pounds. Medical history. Certain medical diagnoses are disqualifiers to include but not limited to type 1 diabetes, AIDS, loss of limb, glaucoma, single kidney, and other medical history such as surgeries, illness, and ER visits would be reviewed on a case-by-case basis and would potentially require more paperwork for the medical provider. And all issues will be reviewed and eligibility will be determined at that point. If you are unsure, absolutely ask one of us here in the office, ask your recruiter specifically. We definitely don't have all the answers and we don't even make that decision in-house. It's a decision made well above our heads with MEPS and our senior medical officers. So police record, certain charges and involved are automatic disqualifiers. For example, anything violent in nature as far as assaults, grand larceny, those type of things, anything felony level definitely has to be looked at under further review. It doesn't necessarily mean it's an automatic disqualifier. It just depends on the nature of the charge and how the case played out as well. All other police involvement will be reviewed on a case-by-case basis. What do you need when you come into the office? If this is something you've made the decision to proceed with, there are a list of things you will need to get started. To include but not limited to your birth certificate, a photo ID, high school diploma, or what we call a will grad letter. So it's a letter from your school counselor stating you are on track to graduate and you are indeed looked at as a high school senior, and your social security card. So with 17-year-olds, we can't allow them to enlist without parental consent, obviously. So the signature for both of your parents on your birth certificate is required on your paperwork. And certain circumstances, whether it's an adoption case or both parents aren't in the picture, those are things we look at on a case-by-case basis and get the approval from higher authority if needed. So there's two ways to join with infinite possibilities for enlistment. So active duty and reserve duty. So active duty is a full-time commitment of 4 to 6 years, followed by 2 to 4 years of reserve time. So your initial commitment is 8 years. That scares a lot of people, but what that really means is I can use my own personal contract as an example. So I enlisted in the Navy originally under a 4-year contract with a 24-month extension. So my initial enlistment was a 6-year active duty commitment. After that first 6 years, I was susceptible to 2 years in an inactive reserve status. That doesn't mean I'm reserving or I'm a reservist and doing drill time. It means that if something global scale that we really, really needed people who were already trained and ready to go, I would get called up to help support. If my initial contract was 4, that second increment would have been 4 years inactive reserve as well. So the initial contract is an 8-year commitment. Reserve duty is a part-time, 2 days a month or 2 weeks out of the year. You train near home, and as a reserve sailor, you're eligible for low-cost medical insurance. You get paid for 4 days active duty pay for 2 days served per month, and you work toward a 401k. Reserve is more of the, if you want to go to college first and you're looking at maybe going officer later, that's a really good plan to kind of get your foot in the door, to claim time in service, to back your package for officer candidate type stuff, as well as people who don't really want to give up their everyday life but still want to contribute to the military. Those are really good options. He didn't want to. The process. So the process for joining is sometimes a stressful and scary process. All family and anyone who influences the applicant is welcome to attend any and all meetings between the applicant and the recruiter, or can call the recruiter for any questions at any time. Schedule an interview with your recruiter is step one. Paperwork is filled out in the office. MEPS visit to conduct your ASVAB tests, medical examination, job selection, and swearing into the Navy. At that point, you'll be part of what's called the delayed entry program, or what we call the DEP pool. And you are part of the delayed entry program until you ship for boot camp to start your new career.
And I just want to touch in about the process when you guys, or people or applicants or students do come in. A lot of times I know when I joined, my parents were very reserved about me coming into office because they didn't want us to get pushed into certain jobs, certain fields, those type of things. Here in this office, we don't do any of the real pushing. We try to motivate these people to just let them see what they want with their lives. If they choose to, this isn't the best path for them, and that's fine, right? It's not always the best path for everybody. And if something they do have and something they do want with their life and with their career more lines up with one of the other services, we work very well with our other services here in this area. So we do pass applicants along just so they can get that conversation started. But when they do come in, we do encourage all parents, family members, any influences on their life to come in with them. There's been multiple times when I have talked to moms, dads sitting down while the applicant is in here or without them in here, just to answer questions they have to help them, feel a little bit more comfortable about the process. And any questions you do have during the entire time, even after you say you do decide to move forward with that, we are available for those questions, and we can answer those at any given time. We do have our phones on us almost 24/7. So we are always open to questions, and we're always open to help out. And what we try to do is look for them to figure out what they want best with their life and help them with that.
Absolutely. I think as recruiters, we get the stigma of we'd rather your child join the Navy than anything else. And honestly, every child that I talk to, my main goal is to give them the tools to make an informed decision about what's best for their future and how they can be most successful. So, any questions?
Thank you so much. We do have a couple questions, and at this time, we do invite families to put any other questions that they have into the Q&A. So the first one we have, does it matter if my student has an IEP or 504 plan? Are they still able to enter the military?
So that's a case-by-case basis. It depends on the severity. It depends on what level of a spectrum they're on as well. So it's a review. It has to be all of the medical documentation, and then it's more of we submit all the paperwork up. I think there's a couple interviews involved in the process as well, and then from there, the higher authorities kind of make that decision. So it doesn't necessarily automatically mean they're disqualified. No, it's just more of it'll be a review, one of those medical review situations that we talked about earlier.
Great, thank you. The next question, how does the legalization of marijuana affect drug testing when entering the military now?
So with that, and it is legal in multiple states, but it is federally not legal. So as of right now, we do have a zero tolerance policy. We don't necessarily, I don't want to say we don't necessarily care, but if they have done that in the past, they just cannot pop during the process, because that would be a disqualifier.
All right, thank you. And the next one, what is the best path for a person who wants to become an officer?
I guess that answer will vary no matter who you ask. If you ask somebody who is enlisted, every one of us would rather serve under an officer who has been in our shoes prior. In my personal opinion, because this is definitely an opinion-based question. In my personal opinion, a former enlisted sailor going to the officer side makes a better officer every time. But it genuinely depends on what each individual's goals are, and why they want to be an officer, what steps they've already taken to get there. I would say with somebody without a bachelor's degree at a minimum, the enlisted side is the most efficient way to get there without putting yourself into student loan debt, without racking up a bunch of unnecessary debt, because there are options to go enlisted to officer that don't include a degree. So
And there is other routes such as the ROTC scholarship, and then going through ROTC through a college, select colleges that they can take as well, where that would be, if they do get approved and selected for it, it would be a full ride scholarship where they would have enlistment or a commission obligation afterwards. There's also the Naval Academy or the academies for any branch. That is an option as well, as long as they get accepted. If they do, however, decide to go to college first and they did want to commission as an officer straight into the military or the Navy, we do have officer recruiters for that. And those specific people would help them with that process, and we'd be happy to get them in touch with that as well.
All right, thank you. The next question, please explain the process of officer program for high school.
So the officer program for high school, the only ones that somebody coming out with a high school diploma would be eligible for would be the ones that Petty Officer Kester just discussed, which would be the Reserve Officer Training Candidate School, which is the college program where they would commission and then do their obli-serve after college, or the Naval Academy.
And there's other different scholarships too. There's a minority scholarship that we offer, where it's kind of be the same thing as ROTC, but more specified toward minorities.
There's also preparatory scholarships for the Naval Academy. So the first year in school is paid for by like the same type of scholarship for ROTC, but it's to prep them to establish a GPA to go to the Naval Academy.
All right, and the next question, is obtaining a bachelor's degree easily obtainable while enlisted?
I could take that one. It takes a little bit. It's a little bit of a process, and takes a little bit longer than most people would like. I have been in for 7 years, and I'm about a year out from doing my bachelor's or getting my bachelor's degree. I didn't start my schooling until I was already in for 3 years though. So it's been about the same, about 4 years, maybe take me 5, maybe 6, depending on what's going on. But with that, it really just depends on how much they're willing to put in, how much work they're willing to do. But it's definitely attainable because you do get college credit for the schooling that you do through the military, that can be transferred very easily. For me, for example, I had 60 credits I was able to be transferred to my school for my degree plan. So that way I didn't have to get as much credits done for my schooling.
60 credits is half a bachelor's. So a lot of schools that you'll go through for the Navy translate to college credits, which was what I was talking about earlier with that Navy college. They do a lot of helping with the translation of our service record to college credits. It's called our joint service transcript.
All right, thank you so much. So this concludes tonight's webinar. I would like to thank all of my panelists for their assistance with getting this information out to our families. If you need further information or would like to discuss your family's specific situation, please feel free to reach out to Dr. Jeffrey McGee, whose information is listed on the screen. And you can also reach out to our department if you need his information as well. Thank you so much for your attendance this evening, and please remember to follow us on Twitter at CPS Face. As previously stated, this webinar has been recorded and will be uploaded to the Chesapeake Public Schools YouTube channel within the next several days. Thank you for joining us this evening, and remember, families and communities work better together. Have a wonderful evening. Thank you.